At my birthday party, my mother said I'd never have success like my sister, so I pulled out the Forbes magazine with my face as Billionaire of the Year. Hey lovelies! If this kind of story speaks to your heart, please support us by subscribing. Drop a hi in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. Now let's continue today's story. The champagne glass trembled in my hand as my mother's words echoed through the dining room. Sweetie, maybe it's time you accepted reality. You'll never have the success your sister has. 32 years. That's how long I'd been swallowing these poison-tipped comments, wearing them like invisible scars across my soul. My birthday party, the one I didn't even want, had become another stage for Mom's favorite performance, elevating my sister Dana while crushing me beneath her designer heels. I watched the faces around the table. Aunt Carol looked down at her plate. My cousin James shifted uncomfortably. Dana, perfect Dana with her real estate license and her modest suburban house, smiled that knowing smile. She'd heard this symphony before. We all had. Mom, can we not do this tonight? My voice came out smaller than intended, carrying the weight of 3 decades of disappointment. Do what, honey? I'm just being honest. Dana has a real career. A husband. Stability. You're still chasing those pipe dreams with your little tech projects. She sipped her wine like she'd just commented on the weather, not carved out another piece of my heart. At some point you need to grow up and accept your limitations. The folder in my purse seemed to burn against my thigh. Inside it lay the Forbes magazine released just yesterday with my face on the cover. Billionaire of the Year. The tech empire I'd built in silence, hidden from my toxic family for 5 years, had finally exploded into public consciousness. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed to understand something first. My mind drifted back to when I was 7, sitting in the principal's office after winning the district science fair. I'd built a solar-powered water purification system using household items. The local news wanted to interview me. Mom's response? Dana has a dance recital that day. This is her moment, not yours. She never rescheduled. The news moved on. When I was 12, I taught myself coding and built my first app, a homework organizer that other kids actually wanted. Dad looked at it for 30 seconds before saying, "That's nice, but did you see Dana made honor roll again?" At 15, I won a full scholarship to a prestigious tech camp. Mom's words still haunted me. Why do you always have to show off? You're making your sister feel bad about herself. I turned down the scholarship. Dana needed new competition cheerleading uniforms. Now, sitting at this table watching my mother diminish me once again, I felt that 7-year-old girl screaming inside me. How many opportunities had I sacrificed at the altar of Dana's mediocrity? How many times had I made myself smaller so my sister could feel bigger? Earth to birthday girl. Dad's voice cut through my memories. Your mother asked you a question. When are you going to get a normal job? You're not getting any younger and this startup nonsense needs to end. My startup. Novatech Solutions. Valued at $3.2 billion. With offices in 12 countries and over 5,000 employees. But they didn't know that. 5 years ago, I'd made a decision that saved my sanity. After yet another family dinner where my modest software consulting income was mocked while Dana's $45,000 real estate commission was celebrated like she'd won the Nobel Prize, I stopped sharing. When my first app sold to a major corporation for 8 figures, I said nothing. When I launched Novatech, I kept it quiet. When we secured our series of funding, then B, then C, I smiled through family dinners and let them think I was barely scraping by. My best friend and business partner Wayne thought I was crazy. Girl, why are you letting them treat you like this? You're worth more than every person at that table combined. Because I need to know, I told him. I need to know if they're capable of loving me without my success. If there's anything real underneath all their toxicity. Tonight was my answer. You know what your problem is? Mom continued, warming to her topic like a preacher at Sunday service. You never learned to be realistic. Dana understood her limitations and worked within them. You kept reaching for stars you'd never touch and now look at you. 32, unmarried, no real career, living in that tiny apartment. My apartment is 3,000 square feet, I said quietly. Well, it looks small. The point is, Dana bought a house at 25. He has a retirement plan. What do you have? I have a net worth that could buy your house 1,000 times over, I thought. But what I said was, Mom, why did you throw me this party if you hate me so much? The table went silent. Hate you? Mom's eyes widened in that practiced innocence she'd perfected over decades. Sweetheart, I don't hate you. I love you. That's why I'm trying to help you see reality. Someone has to tell you the truth. The truth, I repeated, each word carefully measured. The truth is that you've spent my entire life comparing me to Dana. Nothing I ever did was good enough. I won awards. You focused on Dana's participation certificates. I got scholarships, you said I was showing off. I built a business, you called it a pipe dream. So tell me, Mom, what truth am I missing? Dana shifted uncomfortably, finally speaking up. Look, nobody's attacking you. We're just concerned. You've always been so secretive about your finances, your work. It makes people worry. There was the real reason for this gathering. They'd been digging, trying to find out about my income. Last month, Dana had asked to borrow $50,000. I'd said no. The month before, Dad needed $30,000 for his boat. No. Mom wanted me to co-sign a loan for her trip to Europe. No. They were bleeding Dana dry. She'd complained to Aunt Carol, who'd told me in confidence. And now they were circling me like sharks who'd smelled blood in the water. I'm not secretive, I said calmly. I just learned that sharing my life with you means giving you ammunition to hurt me with. Or leverage to take from me. Dad's face reddened. That's a horrible thing to say about your family. Is it? Dad, when's the last time you called me without asking for money? The silence that followed my question was deafening. I watched my father's face cycle through emotions. Anger, guilt, defensiveness, before settling on righteous indignation. We're your family. Family helps each other. Or is that another concept you're too good for now? His voice dripped with sarcasm, and I saw Mom nodding along like a supportive backup singer. Aunt Carol cleared her throat. Maybe we should all take a breath. No, I interrupted, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. No, I've been taking breaths for 32 years. I've been swallowing words, accepting mistreatment, making myself small. I'm done being quiet. I looked around the table at the faces I'd known my whole life. Uncle Terry, who'd called me the weird one at every family gathering. Grandma Susan, who still introduced Dana as my successful granddaughter, and me as the other one. Cousin James was the only one who looked uncomfortable, but even he'd never defended me. Let me tell you all a story, I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. When I was 19, I started my first real business. Nothing huge, just freelance software development. I made $80,000 my first year. I was so proud. I told you all at Thanksgiving, remember? Mom waved dismissively. That was just a fluke. I wasn't finished. My tone stopped her cold. Dana had just started her real estate courses. Everyone toasted her potential while my actual earnings were dismissed as luck. So I made a promise to myself. I would build something extraordinary, and I would do it in silence. I would see if any of you could love me without my achievements to either mock or exploit. Dana's expression shifted. That's not fair. We've always supported you. Have you? I pulled out my phone, swiping through saved messages. Dana, here's a text from you last year. Mom says you're still doing that computer stuff. Must be nice not having real responsibilities. Here's one from Mom after I missed your birthday dinner because of a work crisis. Your sister had to work too, but she prioritized family. This is why you'll always be alone. I looked at my father. Dad, remember when I asked you to come to my college graduation? You said Dana's house closing was more important. I graduated summa cum laude. You saw the photos on Facebook 3 weeks later and commented, nice. Dana's house is beautiful. You're being dramatic, Mom interjected, but her voice wavered slightly. We've always been proud of you. Proud? Proud. My voice rose for the first time, years of suppressed emotion bubbling to the surface. You told my high school guidance counselor I wasn't college material. You said it would be a waste of money. I got a full academic scholarship out of spite, and you complained about the drive to campus being inconvenient. Aunt Carol's eyes widened. Linda, is that true? Mom's face flushed. She's exaggerating. I said community college might be more practical. You told me I was too stupid for university. Those were your exact words. Baby, you're just not university smart. Dana got the brains. You got other qualities. I felt tears pricking my eyes but refused to let them fall. I've spent my entire life wondering what those other qualities were. You never specified. Uncle Terry spoke up. Look, every family has its dynamics. You're making this into something it's not. Uncle Terry, you called me the charity case at your Christmas party. I heard you tell your golf buddies that I was the family disappointment. His face went pale. I stood up from the table, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. The sound seemed to echo in the tense silence. I want to tell you all what I've been doing for the past 5 years. The little tech projects Mom loves to mock. The pipe dreams Dad wants me to abandon. I pulled the folder from my purse, my hands steady now. Inside was the Forbes magazine, but I wasn't ready to reveal it yet. First, they needed context. They needed to understand the magnitude of what they'd dismissed. I founded a company called Novatech Solutions. We develop AI-powered software for healthcare systems. Our technology has helped reduce medical errors by 40% in hospitals that use our platform. We've saved an estimated 12,000 lives in 3 years. Dana scoffed. Okay, so you have a little company. That doesn't mean. We employ 5,372 people across 12 countries. Last year, our revenue was $947 million. This year, we're projected to break $1.2 billion. The table went silent. Mom's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. I've been personally featured in TechCrunch, Wired, and Bloomberg. 3 weeks ago, I gave a keynote address at the Global Technology Summit. The vice president attended. Yesterday, I paused, letting the moment breathe. Yesterday, Forbes named me Billionaire of the Year. I pulled out the magazine and placed it on the table. My face stared up at us all, professional and confident, with the headline, "The Hidden Genius: How She Built a Billion-Dollar Empire in Secret." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the antique clock on the mantel. The one Mom had bought with money she'd borrowed from Dana and never repaid. Mom's hand trembled as she reached for the magazine, pulling it closer like she was handling evidence of a crime she couldn't quite believe. Her lips moved as she read the headline, then the subheading. At 32, tech innovator builds healthcare AI empire while family remained completely unaware of her success. This is you? Her voice was barely a whisper. His mom. This is me. The daughter you said would never amount to anything. The one who wasn't university smart. The family disappointment. Dad grabbed the magazine from Mom's hands, his eyes scanning the article frantically. I watched his face change as he read. Disbelief, shock, calculation. That last expression told me everything I needed to know about what would come next. Why didn't you tell us? Dana's voice cracked slightly. We're your family. We should have known. I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. Should you? Really? Dana, you asked to borrow $50,000 last month. You said it was 4 investment opportunities. What would you have asked for if you'd known I was worth $1.3 billion? That's different. Is it? Dad, you needed $30,000 for a boat. A boat. Mom, you wanted a European vacation and asked me to co-sign a loan because your credit is maxed out. All of this while you mocked my career, my choices, my life. Grandma Susan finally found her voice. But baby, we could have celebrated with you. Supported you. Supported me. Supported me. I felt something inside me finally snap. Where was your support when I was working 3 jobs to afford rent while building my first prototype? Where was it when I spent my savings on my business instead of Dana's wedding gift registry? I turned to my mother. Where was your support when I called you crying because my first major investor fell through, and you told me it was a sign from God to give up? I watched the wheels turning behind my father's eyes. He'd always been the strategist, the one who knew which emotional buttons to push. He set down the magazine carefully, arranged his face into an expression of paternal concern, and reached for my hand. Sweetheart, I think we've all been shocked by this revelation. But you have to understand it from our perspective. You've been hiding this enormous success from your family. That hurts. It makes us feel excluded. There was the pivot. Somehow my achievement had become about their pain. I hid it because I needed to know if you could love me without it. Tonight answered that question definitively. I pulled my hand away. The moment Mom found out, the first thing she felt wasn't pride. It was resentment that Dana wasn't the successful one. The first thing you felt, Dad, was how to position yourself to benefit from my money. That's not true, Mom protested, but her eyes betrayed her. They kept drifting to the magazine, to my face on that cover, calculating what could have been hers. Dana stood abruptly. I can't believe you're making yourself the victim here. We're your family. We've always been there for you. Have you, though? I pulled out my phone again. Dana, I have 47 text messages from you over the past 3 years. 39 of them ask for money or favors. 6 are birthday or holiday obligations. 2 asked how I was doing. And both of those preceded requests for loans within the next message. Her face went red. I was going through a hard time financially. We all go through hard times. I went through them too. The difference is, when I needed help, you all told me to figure it out. To be more like you. Aunt Carol, who'd been quiet throughout most of this exchange, finally spoke up. Her voice was soft but carried weight. I think what your mother is trying to say, honey, is that family should share in success. What's yours is meant to be shared with the people who raised you. Raised me? I turned to face her fully. Aunt Carol, you're probably the kindest one here, so let me tell you a story about being raised in this family. I pulled up a photo on my phone. A picture of 9-year-old me at the science fair, holding a trophy bigger than my torso. This was the regional science fair. I competed against kids from 15 schools. I won first place. My project was selected for the national competition. Do you know what happened next? Silence. Mom and Dad said we couldn't afford the trip to nationals. But that same month, Dana got a $1,500 dress for her Sweet 16 party. When I pointed out that nationals would cost less than her dress, Mom said, "Some things are more important than your little hobbies." I swiped to another photo. This is me at 16. See that bruise on my arm? That's from when I fainted at school. I'd been skipping lunch for 3 weeks to save my lunch money for a coding textbook. The school called home. Mom told them I was being dramatic for attention. Aunt Carol's hand flew to her mouth. This, I pulled up another image, is the acceptance letter to MIT. Full scholarship plus living stipend. I was 17. Mom hid it in her drawer. I found it 2 months after the acceptance deadline had passed. When I confronted her, she said she'd been protecting me from disappointment because MIT was too hard for someone like me. Mom stood up shakily. That's not. I don't remember it that way. You're twisting things. I'm twisting things? My voice remained eerily calm. Let me tell you what really happened in this family, I continued, my voice gaining strength with each word. You didn't just neglect me. You actively sabotaged me because my success threatened your narrative about Dana being the golden child. I turned to Dana, who'd gone pale. I don't blame you, sis. Not really. You were a kid too, caught in Mom and Dad's toxic game. They pitted us against each other from day one. Every achievement of mine became a threat to their perfect story about you. Wayne had warned me this moment would break me, but instead I felt lighter with each truth I released into the air. When I started Novatech, I took a loan from a private investor. I lived in a studio apartment the size of this dining room for 2 years. I ate ramen and worked 18-hour days. I almost gave up a dozen times. I looked at each face around the table. Not once did any of you check on me. Not once did you ask if I needed help, support, or even just someone to talk to. The one time I called Mom crying because I couldn't make payroll and might lose everything, she said, my voice finally cracked. She said, maybe this is God telling you to stop embarrassing the family with your failures. A tear rolled down my cheek. I didn't wipe it away. That was 3 years ago. The week before we got our Series B funding. $200 million. I was about to become wildly successful, and I called my mother sobbing, and she told me I was an embarrassment. Uncle Terry shifted uncomfortably. Look, families say things in the heat of the moment. This wasn't a moment. This was 32 years of systematic emotional abuse disguised as tough love. I pulled out another document from my folder. This is a letter from my therapist. I started seeing her 5 years ago when I realized I couldn't remember a single time anyone in this family said they were proud of me. The letter trembled in my hands as I read aloud. Patient exhibits signs of complex PTSD stemming from childhood emotional neglect and ongoing familial psychological abuse. Patient reports persistent feelings of inadequacy despite objective evidence of exceptional achievement. Recommendation: establish firm boundaries with family members and potentially limit contact to protect mental health. I set the letter down. I've been in therapy twice a week for 5 years. I've spent hundreds of hours unpacking why I felt worthless despite building an empire. Why I still heard Mom's voice telling me I'd never be enough. Why I had panic attacks before family dinners. The Forbes magazine sat on the table between us like a grenade with its pin pulled. Mom's eyes kept drifting to it, tears streaming down her face, but I couldn't tell if they were from guilt or loss of opportunity. So here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. I'm going to finish my birthday cake, which I bought for myself because none of you remembered to get one. Then I'm going to leave. And none of you are going to contact me unless you can genuinely apologize. Not for being caught, but for 32 years of treating me like I was less than. Dad found his voice finally. You can't just cut off your family. After everything we've done for you. Done for me? Done for me. Something inside me shattered. You want to talk about what you've done for me? Let's talk about what you did to me. You crushed every dream. Mocked every achievement. Made me believe I was stupid, worthless, destined for failure. You want credit for that. I grabbed my purse, the Forbes magazine, my coat. I don't owe you anything. Not my success, not my money, not my time. You had 32 years to love me unconditionally. Instead, you loved me conditionally. On the condition that I remained smaller than Dana, less successful, easier to control. I stood at the door looking back at the table one final time. The faces of my family, people who should have been my biggest cheerleaders, my safe place, my foundation, stared back at me with varying degrees of shock, anger, and calculation. Not one of them had said they were proud of me. Not even now, faced with undeniable proof of my success. They were hurt I hadn't told them. Angry I'd excluded them, calculating how they might still benefit. But proud. Never proud. I want you all to know something, I said quietly, my hand on the doorknob. I still love you. That's the tragedy of this. Despite everything, despite the neglect and the cruelty and the comparison, I still love you. I waited 32 years hoping you'd love me back the same way. That maybe one day you'd see me, really see me, and decide I was worth celebrating. My voice broke. Tonight was supposed to answer that question. And it did. I opened the door, cold air rushing in, and took one step into the night before turning back. Dana, I hope you find your own path outside of Mom and Dad's shadow. Aunt Carol, thank you for at least trying to see both sides. The rest of you, I paused, committing their faces to memory one last time. I hope someday you understand what you lost tonight. I walked to my car. A modest sedan I deliberately kept despite being able to afford any vehicle I wanted, and sat in the driver's seat for a long moment. Through the window I could see them gathering around the magazine, probably reading the full article now, learning about the daughter they never knew because they never asked. My phone buzzed. Wayne, how did it go? Me, exactly as we predicted. They don't love me. They love what I could give them. Wayne, I'm sorry. Me, don't be. I'm finally free. I drove away from my childhood home for the last time, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of regret but of grief. Grief for the family I deserved but never had. Grief for the little girl who tried so hard to be seen. Grief for 32 years of seeking approval from people incapable of giving it. The Forbes magazine sat on my passenger seat, my face smiling up from the cover. Billionaire of the Year. I'd achieved everything I set out to accomplish. I'd built an empire, changed an industry, saved lives. But I couldn't buy the one thing I wanted most. A family who loved me for me. As I pulled onto the highway, my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. Then Dad's. Then Dana's. I let them all go to voicemail. Whatever they had to say now, apologies, excuses, or more likely appeals for money, didn't matter anymore. I'd spent my whole life being someone's disappointment. Tonight, I chose to be my own success story. Even if it meant being successful alone. 3 months later, I'd learned that Mom told everyone I'd gone crazy with money and cut off my family out of spite. Dana sold her story to a local tabloid about her billionaire sister who abandoned her family. Dad started a GoFundMe claiming I'd left them destitute. I didn't respond to any of it. I couldn't make them understand that you can't abandon people who never showed up for you in the first place. I just kept building my empire, changing the world, and learning to love myself the way they never did. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from people who never valued you, even if they're family. Especially if they're family. I never spoke to them again. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share your own experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to choose between family and your own well-being? Let me know your story. And remember, your worth isn't determined by people who refuse to see it. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our next emotionally powerful story.